fights of all time, in every fight that's ever happened. But you look at those two separately, and you know, it wasn't their night tonight, and it wasn't an exciting.
I would win against Anthony, but here I am with a broken jaw, learning the hard way. I'll heal.
What just happened? What you just saw was, yes, Jake Paul finding out there's levels to this game. Yes, Anthony Joshua not having the greatest performance of all time, but him doing exactly what he had to do, what he needed to do for boxing, what he needed to do for himself.
The online world lit up the instant Jake Paul was dropped during his much talked about showdown with Anthony Joshua. Attention quickly shifted to Dana White, who has long criticized Paul's boxing career as more promotion than substance. Without lifting a finger, White's response made his stance clear, a mix of subtle satisfaction and straightforward remarks. For many viewers, the moment felt like confirmation that top-tier heavyweight strength had finally cut through the influencer hype, delivering a harsh reality check in front of a massive audience.
And that calf kick, you know, the whole first round, he couldn't have had a better first round, and then he got caught.
Do you feel it's one of those things where, like, he got caught, or is it one of those things where Hangman age might be catching up to him, he might be slowing down? Which one do you think it could be?
After Anthony Joshua ended Jake Paul's heavyweight bout in emphatic fashion in the 6th round, the fight sparked non-stop discussion across the combat sports community. The damage Paul sustained was serious, leading to hospitalization and surgery. Doctors were forced to repair his jaw with titanium plates, and several teeth had to be removed as part of his treatment.
Thinking, for my own credibility, I've got to knock you out, but I've got to try and knock you out where I'm not hurting you as much as what I could if I unleashed. Yeah. And with the punch you said that he landed, it's not his best punch, it's his most powerful punch, right? Yep. And he's shattered his jaw in 2 places, right? So Anthony Joshua gets his 70 million, whatever it is. But I think he's sitting there thinking, thank God for that. Thank God. On a human level, I've come out, all right, I've sort of, not reputation, but I haven't hurt him as bad as what I could have.
There should be an awful amount of people breathing a massive sigh of relief. Anybody that put that fight together, athletic commissions, like you said.
It wasn't a fight.
No, it wasn't at all. Like you said, it was a prize fight. It was an event. If Anthony damages him, he's got to live with that for the rest of his life.
Absolutely.
That's a lot of stress to deal with, you know what I mean? So I'm sure he's bleeding in the side of relief. The team that have put him in there, that have negotiated that for him, but the authorities that put that on and commissioned it as a proper boxing match, I've no doubt.
Does that go on his...
Yeah, it's a professional boxing.
Do you know what? If I was Anthony Joshua, I would be saying, I don't want that on my record. But for the credibility of them putting the fight on, they would have said to him, no, we've got to say this. It's been commissioned. It's going to be a proper fight. And I found it, I love my boxing, but I just find the whole thing really, really unedifying. You said about get followers. You mentioned Tommy Fury. Tommy Fury is nowhere near his level of getting like a British title fight or whatever. Nowhere near. So it's basically he's like...
Beat Jake Paul.
Right, oh yeah, sorry, yeah, beat Jake Paul. But so
but what I'm saying is that that's the 100. I stand by that, and I think Tommy would admit that. You know what I mean? To become a British champion is a very prestigious thing to do, and I think he would struggle to do that.
But I think when I was reading, he got 5.6 or.
Medical imaging later revealed that Paul's jaw had been fractured in 2 distinct areas, a serious condition commonly referred to as a double break. Following the bout, he transported himself to a nearby hospital, where physicians confirmed the extent of the damage. Doctors estimated a recovery window of roughly 4 to 6 weeks. During that time, Paul shared skin images online, acknowledged the injuries publicly, and expressed gratitude to supporters who reached out during his healing process. Long before the fight took place, UFC President Dana White had openly criticized the matchup, arguing that Paul was stepping far beyond his limits by facing a former heavyweight champion of Joshua's caliber. In the aftermath, many observers felt the result reinforced that warning. White even remarked that much of the event's draw came from audiences anticipating Paul's eventual defeat, a comment that reflected his ongoing doubts about Paul competing successfully at boxing's elite level.
Oh, Jesus. That's a fucking bad idea. That's a bad idea. But let me tell you what, a lot of people will watch that one.
Will you watch it?
Sure. You know what everybody's tuning in for on that one. I think everybody's going to get...
Commentators have since labeled the promotion and its conclusion as a kind of cat and mouse routine, suggesting the final result was clear as soon as the bout was announced. Several insiders note that Paul spent the lead-up leaning into exaggerated trash talk and spectacle, while Joshua remained quiet, methodical, and focused, waiting for the right moment. Once the fight began, the theatrics disappeared almost immediately. Joshua's strength, precision, and experience took control, producing a stoppage that may have surprised casual viewers, but aligned with what seasoned observers expected.
Oh man, great performance by Jake, brother.
Come on, bro. He's a fucking legend for that. He has such big balls getting in the ring with that guy, dude. Josh was a monster. He stayed in it the whole time, and I'm really proud of Jake, dude. All my respect to him, bro. I mean, dude, he went 6.5 rounds with Anthony Joshua, one of the best in the world. So I got nothing but respect.
And got up like 2 times.
No, it was sick.
Talk about that. I mean, there's been other heavyweights that have felt that right hand who haven't got up.
The guy knew so many people, bro. The overhand right. Jake's got a tough chin, dude. I think he does whatever he wants after this. He just has such big balls, dude. He had to keep moving. That was the only strategy. People are gonna say he ran around the ring. They don't know. They don't understand fucking boxing.
You showed a ton of heart, right? You showed a ton of heart. What's next for Jake Paul?
Veteran coach Teddy Atlas caught many fans off guard by describing a theoretical route Jake Paul could take to pull off an upset against Anthony Joshua, even if the odds heavily favor Joshua. Atlas pointed out that matchups often come down to stylistic contrasts, arguing that Paul's youth, mobility, and foot speed could be used to disrupt Joshua's rhythm. He suggested that if Joshua were rusty mentally or off with his timing after extended time away from the ring, Paul might find opportunities. According to Atlas, Paul's best chance would involve constant movement, circling away from danger and avoiding prolonged exchanges, while occasionally firing a quick right hand when Joshua commits too aggressively. By stealing rounds, staying elusive, and preventing Joshua from settling into a groove, Atlas believes Paul could potentially edge out a decision in a shorter fight. It wouldn't be a crowd-pleasing approach, but from Atlas's perspective...
Talk about news that broke out, and it's someone that you've already shown respect to, and I've asked you these questions before about Jake Paul. We had a surprise announcement just the other day about him and Anthony Joshua. What was your reaction when you saw that announcement? It shocked a lot of people in boxing. What did you make of that? Or what do you make
Jake
of that?
hasn't made too many mistakes so far. So it got my attention. It got Teddy's attention. He's been growing. He's been growing in the ring. He's been growing outside the ring. He's been growing in confidence. I think that in the Canelo situation, that didn't happen. He was ready to do that. I think if anything else, if nothing else, he's showing you that he truly is believing in himself. And that, he's been a work in progress. He still is. And he's showing you, he's putting his money where his mouth is. Everyone's calling for him to do this, to do that. And, he's always had the advantage with guys that weren't real fighters. They were fighters. They were older fighters. They were MMA fighters. They were this, they were that. They were smaller. They were older. Now he's taking a guy that's bigger, older, but bigger. A real, can't debate if he's a fighter. 2-time heavyweight champ. Coming off, but he's a smart son of a gun. He's a gutsy son of a... I always stood up for him because everyone was saying he was hurting the sport. He wasn't hurting the sport. In some ways, he was bringing interest in a different way to the sport. But the
fight, billed as Judgment Day, was set for 8 3-minute rounds in the heavyweight class, with Anthony Joshua entering as a clear favorite. That status was largely due to his extensive ring experience, towering 6 foot, 6 frame, and noticeable size edge. On the scales, Joshua came in around 243 pounds, compared to Paul at approximately 216. The opening rounds were cautious on both sides, but the momentum shifted midway through the contest. In the 5th round, Joshua asserted himself, sending Paul to the canvas more than once. He finished matters early in the 6th, just over a minute in, when a powerful right hand flattened Paul and prompted the referee to wave off the fight.
Joshua, Paul was sturdy for the first couple of rounds, but as the fight went on, the more experienced Joshua began to take control. After continuously connecting in the 5th round, it was only a matter of time before it was over. In the 6th, Joshua went on to knock out Paul with a big right hand. Joshua improves his career record to 29-4 now. Paul loses for the second time in his career to go along with 12.
Former UFC title holder Daniel Cormier, who had voiced doubts ahead of the matchup, maintained after the fight that an upset was never truly on the table for Jake Paul. While he gave Paul credit for his durability and willingness to keep going, Cormier suggested that Anthony Joshua controlled the pace and allowed the contest to extend into the later rounds. In his view, the outcome was always destined to come via a decisive strike, as Paul lacked experience and firepower to compete on Joshua's level. Cormier explained that the finishing right hand was only...
So, some people believe in fairy tales. Whoever believed that Jake Paul was going to win, that was an absolute fairy tale. I've got a friend in a group message that said, I just put $20 on Jake Paul to win. I was like, bro, you just wasted your money. There was never a world in which Jake Paul was going to beat Anthony Joshua. It was always a matter of how the fight would end. So I watched all the pundits talking about the fight. Even Rosendo, my boxing coach, I was like, does Anthony Joshua represent boxing? Everybody from that world felt like Anthony Joshua was representing boxing. And as the fight started to go on, first off, he was representing boxing, so they wanted him to get the job done. All right, first and foremost. You can't lose to a guy that's perceived to be a YouTuber, even though today, Jake Paul is more boxer than YouTuber. I've said this time and time again. When you have resources, when you can spend $1 million a year on training camps, housing, food, coaches, this is not recreational anymore. He's a boxer. He's just not a boxer at that level. I ran into his brother in New York City, and I said to Logan, what parameters are in place, Logan? What safeguards do they have to make sure that Anthony Joshua doesn't hurt your brother? He said there are none. He goes, they're going to just straight fight. So in that regard, you got to give...
In the aftermath of the stoppage, Logan Paul stirred conversation by suggesting his brother had claimed as many as 4 rounds before the fight ended. Speaking with clear emotion, Logan maintained that Jake held his own early on, relying on footwork and defense to limit damage, while Anthony Joshua gradually settled into his timing. Although judges, scorers, and most analysts didn't support that assessment, Logan continued to argue that Jake's performance in the opening rounds was being overlooked and that...
Logan, what's up, man? What's your reaction to it?
I'm just so proud of him. My mom has it.
Your brother fought his ass off, man.
Yeah,
I mean, other heavyweights have taken that right hand and only took one.
I'm just so proud of him. That was incredible. In my view, that was a victory on all fronts.
Right.
Like, minus the actual victory, obviously, of course, but bro, like, no one expected him to last 6 rounds with AJ. In my opinion, he won 4 of them. People will argue that he at least won 3. No one expected him to last that long. Rolled his ankle, broke his jaw, still fucking fighting, man. Like, that's toughness. You know, most people wouldn't have the balls ever to step in a boxing ring to bring in their life. He stepped in a boxing ring with one of the baddest men on the planet, who's 40 pounds heavier than him and 6 inches taller. That's insane. He's one of the most skilled fighters on the planet. My brother, as a fucking YouTuber, went 6 rounds with him in a fight with a broken jaw and rolled ankle. I'm so proud of him. That was just unbelievable.
I saw you talking crap to AJ at one point.
I was trying to get his head. I think I pissed him off. I was just saying fuck that shit. I love AJ. But bro,
I saw you going down the fight game.
I was talking so much. But I just pissed him off.
Former world champion Carl Froch was outspoken in his criticism of the Jake Paul Anthony Joshua matchup, arguing that contests like this push boxing into a realm he believes undermines its seriousness. Froch had already questioned Joshua's decision to take on a social media figure rather than pursue high-level opponents, warning that such choices risk eroding both the sport's integrity and Joshua's long-term legacy. In his view, facing influencers doesn't align with the standards traditionally expected of elite heavyweight contenders. While he's
6 rounds, got Jake Paul out of there, dropped him. I think he got stopped on his feet, counted out, knocked out, whatever, however you want to call it. It wasn't a bad knockout. It wasn't an El Sparko. He wasn't rendered unconscious, but he got done. He got it on the chin. He went over. He didn't beat the count. He was sort of up on his feet. But if I'm honest, the whole fight was terrible on it. It was just so bad. It was It was just shit, wasn't it? A proper bad fight for AJ. And let me start with AJ. AJ was following him around the ring a little bit, sort of pouring with the jab, putting the jab on the shoulder of Jake Paul, sort of putting him in the corner and not really pulling the trigger on the right hand. He didn't seem to be motivated to go in there and just smash Jake Paul into oblivion in the first 1 or 2 rounds, which I think he could have done. But he's been out the ring 15 months, he's a bit slow on his feet, a bit ring rust maybe, and he was it's hard. When I used to spar novice amateurs, even when I was a world champion pro, if you're not motivated, sometimes you can have a couple of bad rounds and you're sort of looking at your opponent and a jab hits you or right hand hits you. And I think AJ was in a bit of a daze early on, just walking him around, touching the jab on his shoulder, not really pulling the trigger on the right hand. Didn't look like he got out of first gear. Jake Paul was just on pure survival mode from round 1 right through to round 6. I don't know if he's got a moral victory going 6 rounds. Maybe he has. People might give him credit for going 6 rounds. But he got in there and just survived. He just went in there and ran like a chicken from round 1 right through to round 6 when he got splattered. And it's like, it's just, you can't really justify what he's done, because this is supposed to be a professional sanctioned boxing match. And I think it brings the integrity of the sport down when somebody like AJ, is a 2-time world champion, can't get in there and just completely dismiss somebody like Jake Paul, who I've said for ages can't fight.
Longtime boxing journalist Gareth A. Davies has voiced strong reservations about the safety of a matchup like this, pointing to the clear imbalance in size and professional experience between the two fighters. In his view, the contest pushed the boundaries of what should be considered acceptable inside a sanctioned ring. Davies warned that the danger increases significantly if a seasoned heavyweight like Joshua is able to land clean, powerful shots early on. While he acknowledged that the novelty of social media stars stepping in with an established champion attracts attention, Davies argued that the potential physical consequences outweigh the spectacle. He stressed that promoters and athletic commissions bear responsibility for closely scrutinizing bouts of this nature, as misjudgments can carry serious repercussions.
I'm not going to be with a guy I know what subjects we're going over. So, as I am with you, there is a danger in this fight. The odds are, Joshua's 1-12, obviously. Jake Paul is 6-1, yeah, to win this fight in a 2-horse race in which this is a guy who lost to Tommy Fury, Tyson Fury's brother, in an 8-round fight, who, for me, I wrote that it would damage his legacy a week ago. It will damage his legacy for several reasons. If the Deontay Wilder fight never emerges, which it looks like it isn't, I've been calling for that fight for ages. If those two got in a ring together, it's still a massive fight. It's a dangerous fight to sanction, in my view. It sets the wrong precedent. It is 10-ounce gloves. It is a boxing match. It's not an exhibition. This isn't a 58-year-old Mike Tyson. This is one of the most dangerous finishers in the world, who is probably 5 levels above Jake Paul and a weight division above him. I think it's irresponsible to let those two in a ring together in a proper boxing match. That's my view. It doesn't damage his bank balance, but if he earns $70 million for this,
MMA icon Anderson Silva urged fans to give Jake Paul credit for accepting a fight against an experienced former heavyweight champion and for continuing to battle through difficult moments. Silva highlighted Paul's noticeable development as a fighter and praised his willingness to test himself at that level at the same time. A number of viewers and analysts criticized the flow of the contest, arguing that excessive clinching and physical tactics drained much of the excitement. Rather than sustained exchanges, the early rounds were marked by grabbing, tie-ups, and uneven sequences that disrupted the rhythm and slowed the action. The referee eventually stepped in to caution both fighters.
By the way, Anthony Joshua put on a show in Miami, taking on Jake Paul in a much-anticipated heavyweight bout, and in the end it was AJ who delivered exactly what we wanted in the end. He stopped Paul in the 6th round to get the victory. I'm just seeing pictures online just now of Jake Paul with a broken jaw. The guy's crazy. He's sticking his tongue out, blood everywhere. He's playing up to the cameras. He's quite the showman. Our very own showman with us this morning out there in Miami is TalkSport's Gareth A. Davies. Good morning, Gareth.
Hi, Gareth. Good morning, Shaban. Good morning, Tony. A very dramatic night here.
Yeah.
Ask away.
Gareth, I've got to ask you, because obviously he'll be criticised, I think, for sort of running around the ring in the first few rounds. But boy, I've got to say,
This Jake Paul is game as anybody I've seen.
He is very, very bold and very brash and very brave. And he did extraordinarily well to take Anthony Joshua 6 rounds tonight. Yes, he ran around, he was elusive, but then he clinched and I think he landed about 4 or 5 punches. Arguably, he might have won the first round and another round in there. So he did a brilliant job for his own resume, for his own career. And as you say, he's in hospital right now. He's posting the pictures already on Instagram. The scars of battle, the wounds of battle, the broken jaw, his teeth are rearranged a little bit. He gave it his all, but he wasn't good enough. What happened, we knew that was going to happen. The gulf in class and experience was extraordinary. And, I've just been with Anthony Joshua and he said he was actually quite surprised about how elusive Jake was, and he just decided, you know what, I'm going to take my time here and chop.
Now we want to hear from you. How do you view the Jake Paul-Anthony Joshua matchup? Do you see it as a fair contest, an uneven pairing, or a memorable moment in combat sports history? Share your opinions in the comments and join the discussion.